So just to get back, so tonight is a presentation on GIG, and stands for Generational Inheritance Group. And what we're going to talk about briefly is what you see there in your picture, the GIG Institute, the GIG CFI, and GIG clubs. So just to bring the three in context, GIG Institute is our common bond. And when I'll show you later on where to go and look for the whole journey to get started, you'll see that we play a little video of about 4 minutes that helps to just explain people what is the common bond that you agree to. And in our case, our common bond is becoming, on the one hand, the founding parent of our family legacy, but that's not what we say in terms of our common bonds. Our official common bond is continuous adult financial literacy training. But you'll see it is built on the whole thing of generational inheritance. And that started in 2008. And as a result of that start, we then in 2011 started the process to build the GIG CFI, which stands for Cooperative Financial Institution. And I'll tell you a bit more about that and our current products as we go through the program later. And then our GIG Club. So tonight is one of those events that is part of our GIG Club. So when you become a GIG member, you also then automatically join the club. And then once the lockdown is hopefully finished, people can also then meet locally and have local GIG Club groups, which are almost like mini entrepreneur clubs cooperating together. So to take us through the program, it started for me in 2008 when I rediscovered an ancient truth. And there's a text that says, a good man leaves an inheritance of moral stability and goodness to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner finds its way eventually into the hands of the righteous for whom it was laid up. Now, it sounds like very religious, and you're right, the text finds itself in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, Proverbs 13:22, but the revelation that I received in 2008 explained this text to me in much more simpler terms, and the context of Proverbs was that the wisdom already existed during the time of Solomon. It was just a person that then also penned it down or through his scribes, because those days only the very rich could afford scribes and pen things down. But it came about when wise men of old would observe nations, and when they see something that is always true, that if you do action A, the consequences are always result B, good or bad. That then became a society law, and families would then teach their children these ancient truths verbally, and that's how Proverbs came into being. And all Solomon did was to make some of his own observations and pen it down for posterity. And we are fortunate that today we can refer back to the book of Proverbs, which basically becomes the foundation of much of the laws in society that we see around us today. So just to come back to this text, what got me excited when I reread it from that context, and it now says, in any time period, under any condition economically or politically, if you can find a man, woman, or couple, and the Bible calls them good, that dedicates their earthly life here to build an inheritance, and the moral stability and goodness refers to something that's to the benefit of society, to his children's children. It means that which you build must still have beneficial value to the generation of your grandchildren. Then, and this is the precursor, then the wealth, the unused resources of the sinner, families who miss the mark, will eventually come into the hands of the righteous, families who do the right thing and prepare for it. So that got me excited for myself to say, if I can figure out how to apply it for myself, then I can do it for my family and eventually teach others. So we, during that time, we then found a graph that also helped us a lot. And it talks about the generational mindset, problem and solution, to understand that well. And on the horizontal line, you have your lifeline, and we say that currently people can expect to live to 80 years old, and that makes you generation 1. Then the vertical line that you'll see just now is about wealth, influence, your impact in society. So if we now look at the next or the first generation can be described by the yellow line, which says, I get born somewhere in a family line, I go to school or go do whatever society tells me to do, and when I become a young adult, I go out in the world to find a job or a career that pays as much money as possible, as fast as possible, because if I haven't made it by 50, then society tells me it's going to become increasingly difficult to keep a job. And but if I was a good person, I should have made enough money by then that if I eat it slowly, it should last me for the rest of my life. And if I was a really good person, then by the time that I die, I can pay for the funeral and leave some money for the kids. The sad truth is many people don't even make it to become financially independent until their dying days. And now with retrenchments and the shrinking of the economy, it becomes increasingly tough. But let's say you did make it. What this then describe is the typical one generation mindset, that in my lifetime, I make it and I eat it. And my children have to start all over again, and then they make it and they eat it. And their children have to start all over again, make it, eat it. And if we then project this kind of trend line, you'll find a family that generation after generation lives a very mediocre existence life, existing from week to week, month to month, year to year, arriving here at their late 70s plus, looking back and say, how did I get here? And basically living a life of quiet desperation. But what if a life of ours, we can study and learn about generational mindset and adopt, and I'm just taking it slowly, to say, what about just a second generation mindset where during your lifetime you're not thinking of yourself, but you're thinking of your children. So that means you have to think 30 years beyond your death, assuming that you will die before them. So how do you get your mind 30 years beyond your death? Well, on a daily basis, you ask yourself, this business decision, this relationship decision, how will it be of benefit to my children when they are old people? And by asking that question in everything you do on a daily basis, it will force you now, first of all, not to worry about bling and opinions of other people, but to study trends and look into society 15, 20 years down the road to see what will still be relevant. And then start positioning your family in front of those trends. Example, if you think the town will keep expanding and people will always need accommodation, buy that piece of land on the outskirts of town, and for the next 15, 20 years, it's tough, but you pay it off. And then 15, 20 years later, the town has expanded to that new territory, and now your little stand that was once on the outskirts finds itself in the heart of this new suburb, and people say, wow, you were lucky. And that's what happened with these people on the green line. They invest in their ideas and how they see the future, and when the other person's, the yellow line people's economic curve starts going down, their economic curve kicks in, and at the ripe old age, maybe even a week before their death, they might still sign a contract knowing that they won't see the fulfillment of it, but they've trained their children how to take on and go further. So how many of these relevant elderly people do you know in society today that are the movers and shakers and people have respect for them? Well, I can tell you in my circles, not too many. And those that are there, and we praise God for them, they're not even God's best desire for mankind. So he gave us, hidden in the book of Proverbs 13:22, a vision for how society could be. And if we now unpack it and we look at the purple line, it shows the 3 generational mindset person. But now the question comes, how do I get my mind 60 years beyond my death while I'm living my life here on earth? Well, you do that on the same basis. Ask yourself on a daily basis, this career decision, this business decision, this relationship decision, how will it be of benefit to my grandchildren by the time that they are old people? And when you do this now, studying trends is no longer good enough. Life is happening so fast, and how many of us can really see into the future. I can tell you most people can't even see too deep into the first quarter of next year because of this uncertainty. Will lockdown ever lift, and when? So how do you think into the future? The only way is to build a new, what I call a gravity force around you. Currently, the yellow one generation mindset, which is the way that 99.9% of people in life are programmed, is such a strong force to keep you where you are that it's difficult to escape that. And it's programmed to make you believe that you are too stupid to handle your own finances, so give it to the banks and give it to insurance companies to handle it on your behalf. And governments create laws to strip you of your money through taxes and estate duties when you die, so that you can be vulnerable and manipulatable to what they suggest to you. And then the media play on your inferiority to show you, parade people who say you could be like this, but you need to smoke this or drink this or spray this on because we are so inferior, and they want you to spend your money. So how do you become that generational parent? How do you become that person that start humbly and grow and reinvest your money in yourself, personal growth, take your children with you on this journey, teach them the language of wealth creation, generational wealth creation, teach them that we no longer consumers, but we are builders. We are no longer owners, but stewards. And understand that your children may have a different gifting than yours. And if they don't want to pursue what you're doing, release them in their gifting. But I believe for every family, there you have at least 3 commercially viable business ideas that under the right conditions, you can develop, and it can provide jobs for tens and even hundreds and even thousands of people if you keep on pursuing that. And even if your children don't want to do it, you keep on with your vision. And as you get older, you have more and more money. You're more free to invest and make an impact in society, and having a ball and pass it on to bring in outside people, give them shares in the company, but structure your company through trusts and company so that your children's children will still have a benefit 30, 60 years beyond your death. And then your life will be this constant growing life of impact, making a difference. And then one day you called home, and now in hindsight, your peak becomes the starting point for your children to build on, and their peak becomes the starting point for their children to build on. And the projection line of these generational families is one that just increases in time. And if we now look at some of our generational families in South Africa, like the Maponyas and the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers, you will see that these families today are God's blessing to a country because they provide sustainable jobs to hundreds and even thousands of citizens from all political and religious affiliations. So if we want a better future for our country, and that's the purpose of our presentation tonight, we need more such families. And then the goal of tonight is hopefully somewhere along the line, something stirs in you to say, hey, I want to become that founding parent that will lead my family out of the one generation mindset to the 3-generation mindset. But then the question is, how do you do that? Well, the reality is when people start this journey, every founding father, even for the Ruperts and the Maponias and the Oppenheimers, that founding father didn't arrive here on earth basked in wealth. He started in economic pain and lack. He just got sick and tired of it and then said, I'm going to lead my family out of this thing. So what is that journey that you need to prepare yourself on to take you to the 3-generational mindset of abundance and prosperity? Well, we call it the journey of the 4 S's or 4 stations. The first S is called a struggle mindset. A struggle mindset is simply where expenses are bigger than income. And you have a constant minus month after month. And if that starts to happen, your inner world becomes one of turmoil and feeling hopeless and even victimized. So the only way to get out of this mindset is to actively start working on getting income up, and we recommend to people pursue 3 or more different growing and sustainable income streams, and then apply your mind on how to cut down on frivolous expenses. And a lot of people will tell you, but I can't cut any further. I have to spend money on insurance. I have to spend money on food, or whatever the case may be. And yes, you're right. But have you considered maybe a smarter way of spending? And our legacy coaches can then help you with that exercise where you can still get the risk cover or the food or the consumables, but by saving money, you can now take that money that you save and start investing it. As you start attending to that income component and lower the expense component, the day will come that you will now have a surplus. And that is what leads you to the second stage, and that's called stability. And that's when hopelessness turns into hope. And now you've got energy. But the challenge is when that first surplus happens, it's so minuscule, an extra 50 or extra 100 Rand, that people don't appreciate the fact that they have got out of struggle. So they look at that 100 Rand and say, what can I do with this? And then because they are still mostly programmed for consumption, they then go and spend more on the Edgar's account and they're back in struggle. So that's where GIG comes in and encourage you to become an investor, start your investor account and start investing small bits of money. So your 10 Rand plus my 10 Rand plus 8 others of ours, that's already 1,000 Rand. And over time, we can find ways to make our money grow so that in time you reach this third S, success. And we define success as having choices, and you have choices when you have 3 or more sustainable growing income streams. And you never leave that station. So even though the one income stream might still be small and only produce an extra 100 Rand a month, well, become a specialist, tweak it and learn how to make it grow until that 100 Rand becomes 1,000 and then 10 and then 100,000. And then over time, your specialization on your 3 or more income streams will make you economically attractive to other people on their journey. And then one day we'll meet each other and we might say, hey, why don't we do number 4 together, number 5 together? And that's what happened for these generational families. They started humbly, they started to specialize, and before they know it, opportunities started to come to them where today for those families, they spend the bulk of their time of looking at opportunities, but saying most of them so that they can say yes to the good ones. And you do that because the ultimate goal is not just to have success, but is to move into your significance. And significance is that thing which God has designed you for. How you can be a blessing to your family and society. But you want to do it from rest, not from stress. And unfortunately, most of the NGOs and churches out there operate not from success, but from struggle. And therefore, they spend most of their time running around for money, and it's not generationally transferable. As soon as the founder don't have the energy anymore to continue, that whole thing collapses. So that, in a nutshell, that is the journey of the 4 S's. So think about, where do you stand in this thing? Are you happy to start embarking on this journey? If you want, then I'm just going to quickly share with you the bank side of things, and then I'll take you to the website where you can then go and pursue it on your own time. And as you work through it, you can then come back to us if you have questions. So in 2011, after about 3 years of teaching this journey to people, we had about 12 families who pursued it, but not with much success. But out of that came enough understanding that we started to say to each other that as we pursue this, we will get to a time where we need to have our own bank with our own money, because banks, the current bank system out there, are not friendly towards entrepreneurs. And as you get older, it doesn't make you less of an entrepreneur, but conventional banks won't give you any loans. So we then set up our own bank, and I'm going to move into it. But just before I teach you about the multiplier effect of money, quickly, the 3 kinds of banks that we have is the conventional banks that operate under the Banks Act, the ABSAs, net banks, FNBs. And to start that licensing process, you need 250 million plus many more millions, because it's tough to get in there and win all the court cases to eventually get your license. But why people fight it is because once they can get there, they don't necessarily have to have actual money. The Bank Act, through the concept that we call fractional banking, to create money out of thin air. So you want to buy a car for yourself, you need to show the banks, let's say the car is 100,000 Rand. You just need to show that you are good for 100,000 and you can pay it off over, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 years. And once you can prove to them your credit worthiness, they then take your loan application of 100,000 to the Reserve Bank, and the Act then allows them to create 1 million, 10 times that amount, artificially through virtual currency. And because we've got a trusted system through the Reserve Bank and the banks, we trust the digits that we pay each other with, because very few people actually convert it back into cash. So in case you want to then do a run on the bank, there's just a law that says banks, you should have a surplus or a buffer of at least 6 or 8% in case there's a demand for people drawing cash. So that's the first tier banking, but in South Africa, fortunately, it's still very effectively run, so you can trust the banks. The second tier is the mutual bank. You can start that license application with about 30 million. And the problem is you need to have actual money. You can't make artificial money. You can't do fractional banking. That means you have to find the public to invest in you, and that's called cost of money. Then you have to lend it out, which is now the way you'll make money, and that's called spread. And if you don't get money in, then you can't lend it out. But sometimes, like the African bank, you start having problems. There's lots of people who want to borrow. Then how do you get money in? So your cost of money becomes too exorbitant. The people who borrow from you can't pay back. And just by the way, banks like Capitec and African Bank charge about 30% per annum on those micro loans that they give out to you. So that's how they make their money. So that's the mutual banks. So how do you, and currently we only have 2 mutual banks operating, Finbond and Grahamstown Building Society, because you'll remember a couple of months or years ago, there was that big thing about Vendor Building Society, or VBS, being stripped to the bone by greedy crooks and politicians. All right, so we only got 2 banks left. So in time, there might be a few banks coming. One good bank of the past was Sambo National, which focused on the housing component. And then good news for us, in 2007, they wrote into law a third kind of bank called cooperative bank. And the cooperative bank law basically state that if you have a closed community, which is defined by their common bond, and you've got at least 200 members that wants to work together and 100,000 in share capital, you can start your own bank and design your own products. And today we have about 28 such entities. The beginning entity is called a cooperative financial institution. And of these entities, we have only 3 with a national license, with GIG being one of them. But to show you that even though we must have actual money to operate, and where do we find it? We find it from our members. There's a strong multiplier effect of money if you keep it circulating into a closed group community. So let's say we can get 100 members in our community that commit to save 100 Rand a month each. That will become an inflow of money of 10 Rand a month. So what will then be the benefit to our members? We can then decide to say, this product is available to only members, where they can then borrow interest-free, but they must be able to pay it back within 5 months. So that's just the law of this example. Now, in month 1, there's then 10,000 coming in. Our credit committee looks at the application. They have 10,000 to lend out. They lend it out, whether it's one person getting the whole 10 or 10 people getting 1,000 each. But that 10,000 must come back into 5 installments of 2,000 each. So when that happens, in month 2, a new 10 comes in plus the 2 that's repaid. At the end of that month, we now have 12,000 to pay out. So 12,000 divided by 5 needs to be repaid in installments of 2,400 Rand per month. So in month 3, when the new 10 comes in, plus the 2 that's repaid, plus the 2,400, we already have 14,400 in our kitty to lend out to our community. If we now fast track that, in a year or 12 months, we will then have accumulated 120,000 Rand from our members. But the way it circulates and go back out, by month 12, we already got 44,000 available to lend out to people that month. So this is real money that went to real people in our community to pay real bills or buy real stock or buy real businesses. So if we add it all up on the right-hand side, we have created a community economy for our community to the value of 315,000 Rand, but yet we've only brought in 120. If we stop our business at month 12 and just wait for the money that's out to be repaid, by the time that that's repaid, a further 75,000 will come in. So we have created an economy of 391,000 with only 120. That's more than a factor of 3 times. And we use that in developing our product range, which looks like this. You become a member of GIG with a once-off registration of 250. Out of that 250, we then buy 1 share of 100 Rand for you. That's the way you can legally participate in the process. Whenever you leave the group, you can get your 100 Rand back. But while you are a shareholder, then on a monthly basis, you decide on option, the 60 Rand a month option or 120 Rand a month option, and we'll tell you more about it just now. But we have 4 financial products currently available to our members. The one is our fixed savings account, where you can bring a lump sum and invest it for 6 or 12 or 24 months. and then after that period, your money is repaid, capital plus interest guaranteed. And then we have for personal projects, which we call just your 32-day call account, and that's where you put in money towards a rainy day. It could be for saving for school fees or a project of yours. You can put it in lump sums, or you can top it up monthly with small amounts. It's all up to you. But whenever you need to access your money, it's available to you by sending an email with 32-day notice, and you get your money back. And while it's in the bank, it earns interest at market rates. Then we have two sophisticated products. The first one is called our investor account. It works also like the 32-day call account. It's your money, it's under your control, but you put it in there. And why we make it a separate account, we want you to understand that investment money is not to be eaten. It's not towards a rainy day or a special family project going overseas or stuff like that. This is real investment money that's under your trusteeship for the time of your grandchildren. Now, however much money you put in there, it's your money. The first 2,000 Rand will not earn interest. That's called activation. But then after 2,000, it earns interest at market-related interest. But the idea of this money is that you are now a member of our investor club. And our team constantly look at property deals, business deals, and if they find something good, they bring it to the table. And then you have a choice to take your money out and invest it in one of these deals. Our latest one, which will start again soon, every 2 months, there's a money intake on it. It's called our feed lot. And then people can invest in that for as little as 500 Rand. The money gets pooled, and then are bought with the money, fattened, slaughtered, the meat sold, and the process repeated twice during the period of 12 months. So your money is tied up for 12 months. And if you go in December, you can only release it again next year, December. But the company has been doing it successfully now for 3 years, and the return on investment ranges between 10 and 15% per annum. So we'll let you know more about that as time goes on. And in the new year, we'll start looking at some other opportunities as well. And then our last product is called the Loan Link Share, where you invest your money interest-free in this account. The first year, you can't participate, but after 12 months, you can then borrow against your deposit in this account up to 3 times. Let's say you've saved 10,000 Rand, you can then borrow up to 30,000 interest-free. Then after you paid back your first loan, the first loan repayable over 12 months, future loans, so that's another gearing, can then be repaid over the period that you've been a member of GIG, up to 7 years. And where we go with this is theoretically, if you want to then buy a house of 900,000 and you're already 7 years into the program and you've got 300 saved, you can borrow 900,000. It's then calculated to be repaid over 7 years, and your repayment per month will work out the same as if you would take a bond on that property from ABSA over 20 years. So that's where we go with the money, but you can choose to do with that money what you want, pay off high interest debt, buy big ticket items like car or stock for the business, and so forth. And that concludes then the 4 products that we have. So how do you become a member? You can be a member for free, and I'll show you just now how you do that. But then you, apart from getting some introductory training lessons, there's not much happening at free members level. Then you can choose to upgrade and become a paid member at the classic membership option. And there you have access to our 4 CFI products, the normal and sophisticated products. And you have access to our GIG Club memberships, webinars, rallies, networking opportunities, and whatever else we develop. Now, what's the difference between the 60 and the 120? It's exactly the same, plus For the 120, you get family funeral cover of 30,000, where principal and spouse gets 30,000 paid out when they die, and adult children 13 to 21, 20,000, children 5 to 13, 7,500, and children under 5, 3,000. So that's your two choices currently as a member. So I'm not yet finished, but I normally at this stage tell people, is this the end or the beginning? So if you think it's the beginning, then please take down this website, gig-institute.com. When you click on it, it will bring you to a landing page that looks like this, old man walking there with his grandson. And on the new revised website, we've made it simple now. You can take your time and explore the full website, but we recommend that you take the shortcut to free membership. And if you click that button, it will bring you to this page where we encourage you to watch our brief 4-minute video just to see what GIG is about. And then if you like it, then go scroll down and it will bring you to this page where you then register for free membership. Put your name, last name, mobile, email, and referred by. So if you're referred by a group, put your group, otherwise just by the person that referred you. And then it'll take you to the next stage, and that's to click on that course. And how you click on that course, you click on the picture of the old man and young man itself, and that'll take you to our first course, the generational journey from struggle to significance, and you'll recognize a lot of the material that we've covered tonight, but it's your personal journey that you can do on your laptop or on your cell phone. And if you get interrupted, you can come back. It's short lessons of 2 to 6 minutes each. And at the end of it, you'll understand the message of GIG and the financial products. And then it's time for you to say, yes, I want to become a member. And then you just complete the membership application form. And there you'll just see, again, it'll ask you for your detail, referred by, and if you some more detail. And then it's just a matter of, do I now want to be a member at the 60 or the 120 Rand? And then once you're a paid member, come back to the site, go to that beginning page, and then just go on the paid member journey and navigate from there, and or phone us, and we will then start working with you.